So let me ask you this. How many people in here, and I'm actually going to ask you to stand this time, because it's kind of a respect thing, sisters and brothers and whatnot. But how many people have, you've been on a fire or any kind of incident where you know somebody or you've seen somebody injured to the point where at least they lost some time off work? So if that describes you, stand up. Okay, so take a look around. Take a look around. You know, that's almost half, I would guess. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. So that's also telling. We got half the people in a room stand up saying they have personal connection to people that have been injured enough to lose time. That's also an indicator of a high-risk environment. And so let's see where this really falls in. Now, all these categories, this is like fishing, like the dangerous, most dangerous catch type of fishing, commercial fishing. All that stuff comes from the Department of Labor statistics, right? And they extrapolate it out to 100,000 population just so everything's even, right? And then I added in, let's see if I can make this way. That's not a good laser pointer. That's why I have the lightsaber laser pointer. Wind up. Right there. So I added that in because that's the one I was telling you about, 550 over my career. So that's what that means. Cold War, Special Operations. Where does wildland fire fit? Where does that fit in there? That's where it fits. So that's based on, from 2000 to about 2016. I got all, the numbers from National Wildfire Coordinating Group and all that kind of thing. Out of about a population of 30,000 or so across the nation, wildland firefighters, to extrapolate it out so it's even with all the rest of those. Right? So that's pretty high. And again, it ain't like, I'm not a rocket surgeon, so these numbers probably float around a little bit compared. But I would say that that's still a pretty dangerous environment, an inherently high-risk environment, which the technical term is real freaking dangerous. That's what I want you to take away, RFD. It's a real dangerous environment, and that's why we want to be risk professionals, right? And in fact, you don't have to go back very far. We just lost that C-130 crew in Australia. That was all U.S. crew, right? So I would imagine that will go up as our fire season just turns into fire years. We have a lot of places. So, risk management. Now, a lot of times it's treated as this whole, that's the risk management people manage risk. That they do that, right? We have a risk manager, or it's a safety officer. In reality, it's just the decision-making cycle. That's what risk management is. It's just leaders making decisions. And of course, how many leaders are in this room, right? Everybody. So, identify the hazard. That's this. This is the situation awareness cycle. So you gather info, you form a perception. Okay? Assess that risk. That's recognize the problem or change. What's going on with that risk? What's its impact? Mitigate the risk. That's down here. You select a course of action as you're making a decision. As time goes on, you have less options. That's why it's narrowing down. And then, at the end of the day, you've done all your mitigations. There's still some risk. So then you got to make a decision, a risk decision. Does the outcome justify the risk? Is the risk worth the gain? That's the decision point. And then you implement your controls and you see what happens and you reassess. So at the operator level, we want that to be very intuitive. We don't want people at operator level filling out risk assessment forms and looking at a tree and filling out a blah 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 this and that. But as you move up, like a fire management officer, you move up to a role on an incident management team, you want that to start getting way more analytical. But it's exactly the same process. You're just using a lot more tools. Now, the tools, that's been a problem in wildland fire. Right now, today, on the NWCG, so that's the National Wildfire Coordinating Group, that's a complete interagency, all states, local agencies, federal agencies, umbrella, just so you know when I say NWCG, that's what I'm talking about. The risk assessment tool that is on that website today is like from the 1970s. It is so far out of tune, and it's also the FEMA safety analysis. But most people now have moved to the 1990s. That's where this thing comes from. This is 1990s risk management. Okay? So the way this works is, over here you've got the likelihood or probability of something bad happening, low to high. And over here you have when that thing happens, how bad will it be, low to high. So how likely is it to happen? When it happens, how bad is it going to be? So think about out west, you've got a single engine aircraft, lead plane, whatever, flying on a hot day over mountainous terrain. So low, medium, or high using this, do you think? High. Why? These planes don't crash very much. Unless you're in a C-130. And I'm noticing a trend with those. What makes that high for you?
The outcome is generally bad.
Bad, right? Yes, exactly right. So even something that doesn't happen very much, it's so catastrophic, it puts you into high. There's not a lot you can do. So you're on a fire, let's say, you're doing your thing, and you get a local crew, municipal department, coming up with their engine, they're good to go, but you hear them talking that they've already come off of an overtime shift when they're reporting to you for their assignment that day. Is that low, medium, or high? High. In fact, there's these studies done in the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, with military people, which are a healthy population, right? That after 24 hours without sleep, that you're making the decisions of a .08 drunk. Now, obviously, they did that to the Air Force. They didn't. That doesn't apply to me, because I'm not even getting started when I'm .08. Geez. No, but I mean, like, God, over 24 hours, that was like that was like ops normal, right? And yet, that was the impact, right? So, yeah. Smoke jumper. When Travis, I don't know what belt buckle you got on today after your whole, I don't know how many people saw Travis's thing, but he's been in like every agency there is and done every job there is. But smoke jumper going to work. Travis used to be a smoke jumper. Smoke jumper, just jumping out of the plane, going to work, low, medium, or high. It's high. I've done I can't even tell you how many dozens of formal risk assessments for these just normal practice parachute jumps. Couldn't get one of them under high, So there's not, the problem with this is there's not a lot you can do over here on this likelihood probability side of the scale. I mean, there's a few things, but most of the things we can affect are up here on the severity side. So think of a seatbelt, right? We can do a few things to try to lower how often, accidents happen. But the biggest mitigation would be a seatbelt, because you take something from catastrophic and you take it down to where you're just hurt. And hurt is always better than dead, right? So that's how this works. Now, what does this actually look like? So you don't have to read that. I know you can't read that, so that's okay, because we're going to zoom in and look at some pieces, parts. All I want you to know is this is the risk assessment sheet that most incident management teams are using these days. Okay, it's a modified one. They're not using that old one I talked about. It's a modified one, and it's based on that green, amber, red. And the idea is over here on this side, you're looking in the environment now. What are all the bad things that could happen? Where could they happen? And then in the middle, you put all the mitigations, and then over on that side, after the mitigations, you do another risk assessment. So we're going to take a little tour of this. We're going to start down at the bottom so you can see some of the pieces. So in that bottom left, you can see they're using that green, amber, red. It's such a nice tool because it's like a traffic light. Green, amber, red. We love that. Simple, right? So they're using that high, medium, low, green, amber, red. And as you move across, you've got that likelihood, probability, and there's some descriptors there. You know, so people can try to agree on what does that actually mean, right? And then as you move to the right, bottom right, they've got those severity consequences, right? So they got some definitions here. Now, I'm looking at this thing. Why do you care what's on this confusing poster?
Well, it affects everyone.
What's that?
It affects everyone in decisions. I mean,
Everything from strategy to
Yeah.
tactics.
Okay, so Terry says that it affects everybody in terms of decisions, and then you're following on there. What was that?
Well, all the way from strategy down to the tactics that you're going to implement, depending on what you're trying to do, you got to consider, can I avoid it if I change my tactic? Can I
Okay.
avoid it if I change my strategy?
Did you guys hear what he said in the back? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, because if you're a crew member, this is, somebody's using this tool to decide where you're going to go, to put you in harm's way. That's why it's important. You know, you are being affected by this regardless of where you sit with that organization. You're either being sent out or you're the one doing the sending, right? Okay, so now let's take a look. We've done with the bottom, we're going to go back up to the top, the pre-mitigation side, pre-mitigation. So they looked at this one, and you can see, you can see we've got high risk here for snags and falling objects, right? And this, we're going to be looking at Division A. That's what that means, Division Alpha. Road conditions, so obviously some real bad road conditions, because that's a high. Air operations, so that's a high. And not necessarily the risk to the people flying, but the risk to the people, ground pounders from aviation operations. So probably doing a lot of crew shuttling, probably doing a lot of bucket support and things like that. And then fire behavior, so that was high. So Division A was in high risk for 4 things. And then, in moving to the right, now we've got the mitigations for those things. So for that first one of snags and falling objects, you're supposed to go to the Incident Response Pocket Guide to page 20, and then apparently you put that under your helmet for, that's a little cut and pasting there, that's a little bit of cheating, you know, in terms of how you want to do that, but apparently on page 20, there would have been some good procedure there to tap into. And so you go through and you try to do those mitigations. And then you'll see over on the very right, then you do afterwards, after the mitigation, you do it again. And there's still some high levels here, right? You're still in high risk for snags. You're still in high risk for road conditions. You're still in high risk for aviation. So trying to put all that together in one comprehensive line. Snags, Division A, yep, high risk. Road conditions, still high risk, Division A. Air ops, still high risk. Fire behavior, that got down to low, so that's good. Fire was the least of the problem. So in Division A, we're still in high risk for 3 things. And is that acceptable risk? Is that an acceptable risk? To these people, it was. You know, because they were all yeses. There's no no's over there. They're all yeses. So, that's okay. Maybe there's some really important values of risk out there. That's the other side of the equation. That's what we don't know. We can't tell whether that's acceptable risk or not, because we don't know. We don't know what those values are. But let's just say, and the discussion of those values can be subjective, and that leads to some issues, right? Because let's say we're on Division A, and I tell you it's going to take 3 hours to get a crew member, some kid, to a trauma center. That's our medevac time, 3 hours. Is that low, medium, or high risk? High. Oh, everybody agreed on that. Okay? I can fix this. Let's get it to 2. I can get it to 2 hours. Boom. Locked 1/3 of the time on. How you feeling? Shaking your head. What do you mean high? I just took a whole hour off. What makes that high risk?
Still longer than an hour.
So,
It's an hour longer than golden hour.
the golden hour.
Well, even for research,
Like,
yeah, they say that the likelihood of surviving something is much worse after an hour.
yes. So, the golden hour is not a medical rule. But it sure as heck is a medical principle. Okay? It is important, right? And the reason that it works the way it does, and the reason that we can all pretty much agree on what was acceptable, is because all of a sudden we took something that was subjective and we made it quantifiable. There's a measurement there. And we all know what that measurement is, right? And so when you can apply some quantification to risk, that's a big deal. So this is a map of Central Africa. Okay, so you got Central African Republic, South Sudan, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uganda, and a bunch of other stuff on there. For about 5 years, from 2012 to 2016, we had all of our U.S. Special Operations people, not all of them, we had a bunch of them, in Central Africa, working with all of these countries around here to dismantle this guy named Joseph Kony's Lord's Resistance Army, the LRA. These are bad people. You would rather go to a picnic with ISIS than hang out with these LRA people. Bad, 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 bad people. Now, the problem is, there's nothing out here. I mean, this is some of the remotest places on Earth. So we look at, all right, we're putting these people in. They're going to be in a shoot-'em-up thing. How the heck are we going to get them out? Where are they going to go, right? So where's the closest sort of just Western hospital, okay? That's in Nairobi, which is 700 miles away in Kenya. And that's going to be 1 hour, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's not good. Where's the closest U.S. military treatment facility? That is 1,000 miles away in Djibouti, which I love saying that. On Skype, Djibouti. That would be a great kind of, like, just say it. It feels good. Just say it, Djibouti. 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 That's an awesome name for a country. I love that. So that's way too far away. Now, we have mitigations. We have these things called Special Operations Resuscitation Teams, SORTs. Again, more acronyms, right? But these are 5 to 8 person teams, and they can do emergency surgery, advanced trauma, and resuscitation care on site, wherever they are. They can do it. So that's a pretty big capability. It's a pretty big mitigator. The problem is we've only got 3 of them in the entire armed forces. So we're going to peel one off. Yes, we're fighting Iraq, we're fighting Afghanistan, we got all this other stuff in the world going on. We're going to peel one off, we're going to put them here. Where are we going to put them? Where are we going to put them? And the way they chose where they were going to go, looking at that operational area, they looked at that golden hour. That's how the entire Military took that and made that risk decision of where to place that team. It was all based on that golden hour footprint that could best serve where all these little teams were going to be operating. So there is power when you can